So we have finally seen the long-awaited movie for this holiday season, Halloween, which is a sequel to the movie Halloween.
The first one, just the first one. That's it.
So there's Halloween and then there's Halloween, which is really weird. I mean, it makes sense if it was a reboot, but it's just a reboot for the sequel. I don't know, whatever. But I was not surprised, but I was definitely pleased.
Yes.
Because this is something that you don't see every time with Halloween movies. In fact, I haven't seen a good Halloween movie since H2O.
Yeah.
In fact, I mean, since H2O, there's been some really bad ones.
Pretty bad ones.
And the one before H2O was not that good. And, 4 and 5 were okay, I guess. And 3 I didn't like, but compared to some of these other ones, it's actually pretty good. And I like 2 in the first one. But I don't know. If I were to rank this, I'd probably say, 1 is still the best.
Yes, because the classic, the one you always think of, one that started it all, really.
Yeah, it was. I thought this movie. Well, I kind of got a sense of it when I heard about John Carpenter doing the music for it.
Yeah, John Carpenter does the music,
and he does it with his son and somebody else too.
One other person.
They kind of go back to the original soundtrack, but they kind of modernize it, I guess, would be a way to do it.
But they modernize it in a way where they don't tweak it a whole lot, because, when you hear, like, the other movies kind of tweaking it a bit, it's just sort of, like, kind of wanting to hear the original. But I don't know if it's knowing that it's Carpenter. You're kind of getting a sense, like, oh, yeah, Carpenter doing his work, the one that can only be done right.
And I thought for the first time, actually, since the first one, this kind of felt like the first one did in some ways. I mean, you really can't capture the magic from the first one completely, but I think this one was closest to that compared to all the others, just because you had the opening that was much like the first and second one. I think the first and second one were the only ones that really had that sort of classic opening with the pumpkin. It was kind of a new take on how they did that.
How they did the pumpkin. It was interesting.
And the third one, of course, had a pretty decent intro too for its own unique take. But a lot of them were the title credits. Were the old school original style, and a lot of the music and the pacing. It was a little bit faster paced, like the modern stuff. But I think even the jump scares were pretty decent too. There wasn't a lot of them, but what I really liked about the jump scare, because there was one that actually made me jump because it was stupid, but it was effective because there wasn't that thing that you get in all these horror movies, which is that boom.
It's just like where, okay, you're doing something, and then boom, it happens. It's just like, okay, jump scare. Because they actually did a really good job of building the suspense to it. And granted, I think I know the one where you're talking about where that happened, and I saw that, and it was just sort of like, that kind of works.
Yeah, it worked because it just happened, and there was no music. How they always got to make it more
they always got to have that where it just blows out.
And we were just going
ear.
through 100 trailers where they were doing that constantly at you, Yeah.
And
it's like,
the volume was up pretty loud in our theater, honestly.
And I wasn't jumping at any of those jump scares in the trailers. But then that thing didn't have any music, and
it didn't have no music. The person just popped up, and I was like, ooh, okay.
But yeah, I really like how at the end, you had that whole thing. There were a lot of tributes to the original, I felt like, in weird ways.
There were some Easter eggs in there too. Like, you'll definitely, if you catch on to it. Because I kind of I think you saw it, but I pointed it out to you. I was like, oh, this is part 3.
Yeah, there's a lot of neat stuff, but they do it in different ways. Like, when the the granddaughter, Laurie's granddaughter, is at the school, and then she looks out the window, and then of course Laurie's the one out there just standing there like Michael was in the original. It's like,
it's just
well,
kind of
interesting.
That's interesting.
But yeah, there's lots of stuff like that. Even the part at the end of the first movie, there's a moment like that, but the roles are reversed.
Yeah.
And it's really funny because at the point before that, it was really great because you had this whole moment with, Laurie, trying to find Michael, and it was very slow and meticulous, very well done.
Yeah.
And then they,
really
finally
cool.
confront, and then there's that moment there, and at that moment, it's like, the tables have been flipped, and now all of a sudden,
that was like, I was just like, holy crap, this is like a really good pivotal moment here.
Yeah, because now all of a sudden he's got to be we're watching him move around, and we don't know where she is.
Yeah, it was just like a complete role reversal at the end.
So there was a lot of good moments like that in this movie.
Just one thing that kind of, I don't know, it's not the only thing that kind of bugs me. It just kind of leaves me kind of questioning, Laurie's granddaughter's boyfriend.
Yeah.
Just have him kind of into the movie for a while, but then when we start getting into the heat of things, he's just no longer seen anymore.
Yeah, he wasn't.
It's kind of weird.
I mean, it's like usually that ends up somewhere, and it ended up nowhere.
He was just like kind of almost a key person in there because he was seen quite often, but then all of a sudden he's just not mentioned at all anymore.
I mean, you would figure something would happen, but no, not really. Yeah. So that was kind of a weird
last scene
moment.
was just like, whoop, that's it. He's not going to be mentioned or anything else.
But yeah,
it's a little, and I think that has to do with today's horror. It's a little bit more on the gory side than the original.
Yeah. Well, understand part of the thing with the original, I think too, was because of their extremely low budget and limited amount of time. They probably couldn't do something like that.
They had to do a lot of tricks of the camera.
Although I don't really consider this movie that gory compared to what I have seen in the past. I mean, after all, you watch Rob Zombie's 1 and 2, you feel like you're in a much more natural state with this movie. It's like,
that's true.
Even though there may be like swearing and gore and whatnot, it's like nothing when you've seen that movie or both of those movies.
It's just, I think that was one thing that really kind of made me go, ooh.
There was a really weird moment
in
too.
The cop car.
Yes.
That was just like, where did Michael find the time to do that? That is some weird crap that he just did there.
You got to see Michael's hobby there.
Little craft there.
Carving jack-o'-lanterns, except he didn't have a jack-o'-lantern.
Y'all will see.
Yeah, that's interesting. So I thought it was one of the better horror movies. This has been a pretty good year so far, I think, for horror movies, actually. Mm-hmm. We saw The Strangers Pray at Night earlier this year.
That was really
that was
better
really
than the
good.
First one.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that movie. And then this one was good.
Mm-hmm. Did we see? I don't think we've seen any other scary movies at the theater.
But we've seen other ones that have come out this year, like Winchester, which wasn't that great, but I've seen worse. It's kind of a forgettable movie.
I don't really get why they made him to look like Vincent Price, though. That was kind of weird for me.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about Winchester.
Oh, that was something that was interesting. You've got like those two people at the beginning of the movie you think are going to be like main characters, and then that kind of ends pretty quickly, actually. But I thought something was going there with that, and then it totally went away from that. But I thought that was actually a good thing, the way they did like that. But I thought it was good. I wouldn't consider it one of my favorites that I've seen. I mean, definitely the ending of it works
is
well.
really when it hits its peak. There is at the ending.
But if you want to know where my preferences completely lie in the movies, you have to watch Strangers Pray at Night, because that was a total homage to the 80s slashers movie. And this one's more like a modern sort of horror slasher with some homages to that, but not
original.
It really takes it. What I think this movie does, I think, is going to make it well liked even amongst the critical community.
Mm-hmm.
Is that it's very psychological too, because it's dealing with the aftermath of the horrific events and how it's dealt with, how the people have had to deal with it in their life. And I think there's a lot of really decent acting. Now, there are some moments in it where it's typical crappy horror stuff, but I mean, there's some really good stuff mixed in there too that I think a lot of even film critics could appreciate. Not like it's going to be in the Academy Awards or anything like that, but still definitely respected in that regard. That's something that's nice, but I don't really care that much if it, I mean, it's, let me put it this way. You know, it's like Dark Knight for Batman is a well-crafted movie, but I like Tim Burton's Batman. Give me that any day. So, but not to say that the other one's not good, but there are certain things that I just gravitate towards better. Any other thoughts?
One thing, I was trying so hard to figure out this guy's character, the sheriff, because they kind of made him out like he was somebody from the past, and I was like, well, this can't be Sheriff Brackett. I mean, I'm like, okay, was he somebody pivotal in the first one, or even, I don't know. And then when they explained it, I'm like, okay, no. I mean, they kind of made up his character according to like how it would best fit for the first one. He wasn't actually mentioned in the original, but they just created his story. But I swear he looked familiar. I'm like, is he really somebody? But they're,
I guess I gotta look back at it. If you say it's not the sheriff, I thought that's who it was the sheriff from the first one.
No, they said his name was Hawkins.
Oh, okay.
And the original sheriff was Brackett, I believe.
I guess I'll have to look back on that then. Because I mean, it's been too long since I've paid attention to that stuff. But there was something significant about his character when he showed up, and I thought maybe that's who he was. But I would imagine he would have had to been young to be there. I don't know. But we will conclude this, and we will see you around. Bye-bye.